Perfect. So good morning again. After this short coffee break, we continue with the activities of Team Conference. And now we have the pleasure to participate in an activity related to smart learning that is conducted by Rafael Molina and Carlos Villagrá de la Universidad, from the University of Alicante. So thank you very much. We continue with that.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. And we are beginning with the session. My name is Rafael Molina. I'm working with Carlos Villagrá in this track. And we are going to present a different session with different scope. We have made a questionnaire about the question research about smart learning. Our authors, the authors of the papers in this track, they have answered a questionnaire about the maturity, the challenge, and the impact of the different topics of research in smart learning. And here in this session, we are going to present the results and to discuss about these questions. So I'm going to present a very short presentation, and we will discuss about that. Let me share my okay. Okay, I think that you can see the presentation. And we must say that both Carlos and me, we belong to the Smart Learning Group, research group. And I give the word to Carlos, who is presenting the first steps of this question. Carlos?
Okay, thanks, Rafa. Well, in the first part of the questionnaire, we asked the authors to identify which topic in the field of smart learning their paper fits in and justify why. For this purpose, the topics in this slide were provided, and the authors, were asked to complete them if any further topic could be added to this list. The research topics on smart learning are platforms, which is about platforms for adaptive and personalized learning; analytics, which consists on learning analytics and educational data mining for smart learning; tutoring, which deals with learning activity generation, problem generation and selection, feedback generation, and conversational systems; evaluation, which including automatic evaluation, automatic feedback, learning style and assessment; strategies, which is about instructional design for smart learning, learning activity design, gamification, and educational games; collaborations, which consists on collaborative platforms for learning and social networks; modeling, which including domain models, student models, knowledge models and representation, community models and ontologies for smart learning; interfaces, which deals with virtual and augmented reality, natural language processing and speech technologies, and tangible interfaces and wearables; and smart spaces, which including smart classrooms, smart universities, smart schools, and ubiquitous learning. Well, the results indicate that 8 authors from 3 different papers answered the questionnaire, and none of them identified any different topic to this. Well, Following, Rafa will analyze the second part of the questionnaire with the data collected about the maturity, challenge, and impact on education that these topics represent on smart learning research.
Thank you, Carlos. Well, I must say that these three criteria had three levels. The maturity were the levels in the criteria of maturity is incipient, under development, and mature. A challenge can be classified in affordable, difficult, and very difficult, and finally the impact can be classified as reduced, important, or disruptive. We have first studied the maturity level, and here you have a representation of the maturity, the mean value, the average value given by the authors for each topic about maturity, so that the biggest the bubble, the higher the maturity level. So here we can say that we have, following the author's opinion, that there is a very clear topic that is now in the beginning of the research, in the research way, which is evaluation. Most authors consider that evaluation is a very incipient topic of research in this question. And in the other side, we have analytics, platforms, strategies, and collaboration as topics that we can say that they are mature. Here we also have, in the lower part of the diagram, we have the standard deviation of the answers, so that we can see that the authors all are very agree with the maturity level of strategies, because the standard deviation is quite small, while they have very different opinions about analytics, collaboration, and modeling especially. So I would like to ask the authors about this question. Why do you think that analytics, for instance, why do you have very different opinions about that? I can say that the article from the University Miguel Hernández, the authors said that analytics is in the first maturity level, it's incipient, while the authors in Alicante consider they are mature. And the authors in Valladolid, for instance, they consider that it's in the middle point. Okay, so there are very different opinions. So I would ask our colleagues from University Miguel Hernández, why do you consider that? Why do you consider that analytics is in the incipient stage? You can talk.
We think that it's an incipient level of maturity because the data mining is a big thing, and there is so much things to do in that topic.
So I because of the because I know your group, and I know how you're working, I would say that you have a long way researching in analytics. So what I know, or what I consider, is that as you are very focused on analytics, you know that there is a long way to follow now.
Yes.
Is that your opinion?
Yes. There is so much to investigate in that, in analytics.
Okay. Meanwhile, for instance, in the Alicante group, we are saying just the contrary. So, for instance, Carlos, why do you think that we have that this topic is mature now?
I think that my opinion is that this topic is more mature because precisely in this field is our area of research. We are very focused in gamification and educational games, for example, and we have seen more research in this field. I think that my opinion is for this reason.
Okay. So the opinions are contrary, maybe because of the same question, because we are both focused on analytics, and on one side we see that there is a long way to follow, but also compared with the other topics, we know very much about that, so we consider that it's much more material. Okay, but it's the different sides of the same coin. I consider. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Fran.
I personally think that both opinions are more or less similar. They are not so different because it depends on how you consider the topic. Because I agree with Esther that this topic there are many things still to be done, and I think that there are many techniques that are mature. For instance, in machine learning and data analytics, there are many techniques that now can be used, and they are in a user level stage, so you can use them even without knowing the details. So they are very mature. However, I think that there are many applications and many things to discover, because we are currently more focused on things that we already did previously without machine learning techniques, and we still need to discover new frontiers in things that can be done with the new techniques and new ways. So I think both opinions are both sides of this coin, in the sense that we are already mature in some sense and already non-mature in other sense.
Okay, thank you, Fran. I agree with you. We are not, in fact, saying different things, but considering the same thing from different point of views. Good point. Any other author wants to give his opinion about that?
I would like to extend Fran's opinion about this dichotomy of the maturity, because apart from the possibilities or the new scenarios that will be explored with new techniques for the data processing, also there's a point of view of the data availability, because, for example, it's really mature the acquisition and the amount of information that we can get from digital platforms or virtual environments, but also there's this somehow incipient part that is the multimodal learning analytics, that try to combine multiple sources of data, but not only on the digital space, also considering the impact that the Internet of Things and the introduction of new devices in classrooms that are appearing.
Okay, thank you, Sergio. So you think that for example, the multimodal analysis is a question to research much more?
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed, nowadays there are some groups that are working on it, and it can be seen, for example, within the solar research community, and also in the LAC conference, that there are some specific tracks trying to explore and advance in this part of learning analytics.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hola, Alex. Hello.
Hello. Hello. So, about the first question on analytics, from my group and Miguel Hernandez University, we think that also regarding the state opinion, the analytics has two approaches, the descriptive and the predictive one. No? So maybe in descriptive models, there are a lot of works applied on learning, on teaching and smart learning. So, but predictive models are in the first stage maybe, because these techniques are not widely applied on the educational context. So I think that analytics is starting just because this reason and not on the descriptive way, but on the predictive models maybe. So analytics needs more and more researchers working on this topic.
Thank you, Alex. I agree with you. I think that prediction, particularly in the education field, is a very interesting field and and it's wide open now.
Yes, yes, of course.
Okay. I'm taking notes because you know that we are going to prepare an editorial with the results of this session. Okay. Thank you, Alex. Okay.
I would like.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, sorry.
I would like to. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure being here, sharing research interest. I'm just hearing all of you, and I would like to introduce our point of view. I know it's a little considered like a branch because we are focused on ethical considerations, but I think it is very pertinent in this case because Sergio and Alex have introduced important things like Internet of Things learning when we are using in classrooms or in formal contexts, Internet of Things, what happened with all this information reaching students. And I would like to introduce here ethical considerations because we are walking in first steps of artificial intelligence and automatization. I mean, when we are using at classroom in first stages smart devices like Alexa or Google Home, we are accessing the Internet of Things, but through devices that are mediated with a big enterprise. I mean, Google or Amazon in the case of Alexa. So I would like to know your opinion because it's very important, all the advances in analytics, strategies, collaboration, modeling, interfaces, evaluation. This is very, very important because it makes it happen. But what happened with the access, the free access? Who are people which are giving us all this information? This is mediated. What interests are behind this? So I think ethical considerations are normally at last, but I think this is a very important point because we are talking about our students, university students, school students, and we are using devices without not consideration on this point. And what is happening with this? Are we ethically prepared to access all this information in classroom? Because this is happening. So I think it's an important point. I don't know what you think about it. I would like to hear your opinions because you are the experts who are developing all that things in all that fields, platforms, analytics, strategies. But what happened with ethical considerations? Are we taking this into account?
Thank you, Anna. I think that this is a very, very hot
yes,
topic
point.
now, and very interesting to discuss. I have some ideas, but I would like to hear the other authors if any has any opinion to say?
I understand that when we are using platforms, educational platforms, we have it more or less control, because if we use a formal context, then we can access and know what we are sharing with the students. But what happens when we use multi-platforms, the Internet of Things, and we use all the sources we have to use it? Because this is happening. I'm a teacher in university and I'm doing this. I'm using the Internet of Things, engaging students to use all sources we have freely access in the Internet. But is this ethical? Is there, and what happens if we use this with little boys and girls in school? I don't know. If
Let me introduce my opinion about that. I think that there are different steps or different levels in the ethical and law questions about the protection of data and this type of things, particularly when there are children in this situation. I would say that the first level is the personal level. As a person, you have to be prepared to know how the data affect you. Okay, so we must be conscious about that, and we must give this education to the children. So we must, I think that the schools and university also should introduce some topics about the protection of data to our students. But they are children. They are not. They don't have the age. Okay, they are not adults. So the second level is the responsibility of the institution, the university. In this case, in our case, is the university, but also in the schools. I think that we should give as university, our universities should give the professors, the teachers, should give means to control that. So they should introduce the free or the open systems such as Google or such as Alexa or whatever, to introduce that in the politics of the university, of the institution, so that they are under the laws of the university. And the third level is the government level, okay? The question of law. But law affects everybody. So there are different levels of responsibility. We must ask the government to give us the correct laws. We must ask the institution to give us the tools and to guarantee that these tools fulfill every consideration about that. And we as people, we must be aware of these questions as a person who is working with digital devices. This is what I would say that.
Well, if you allow me, I think you have forgotten some important point, which is enterprises and economic interests. I'm absolutely agree with you that we have the personal responsibility, the center or institution responsibility, and of course governments. But the thing is, or the point is, that enterprises, with their economic interests, they are controlling data. They are giving us what they want.
Yeah.
This is a very important debate, I think, and important to debate it in this kind of spaces because I think we could have the knowledge to control or filter the situation. Because the big question is, are we as adults conscious that when we talk with Alexa or, for example, for Google Home, we are being personalized by these devices? I mean, when I say, Alexa, please give me the news. What news are Alexa giving to me? If we apply this to education, learning, which is incipient, if a child asks to Alexa, and this is happening now, if a child asks to Alexa, Alexa, who was Napoleon? Which is the response for this child from Alexa? This is the point. So I think we, from academic field, should intervene in these kind of things, because economic interests are just being in the top. I think this is my point of view. This is the point we are researching, and we are trying to introduce some kind of filters or applications that could manage this information given by those devices nowadays. So I think we shouldn't forget, no, not forget, I don't have the word. We must have in mind always what is happening with the economic interest.
Okay, I agree with you. And I have a new consideration if you agree with me. I think that we could add a new topic for the next year in this track, which is about ethical issues.
Lovely.
Very interesting. So a very good point, Anna.
Thank you. Lovely.
I
Okay. So
would like to give a small point that this ethical debate has been focused more on the data that is available and the ownership, and also who is controlling it and how they are using it. But also, in the case of learning analytics, it should be considered how it is going to affect not only what data is available, also after all the processes, how it's going to affect the students. If it is appropriate the final decision or the interpretation that is taken into account, how is it transferred to the teachers and the students, how the reasoning behind is going to influence the learning process.
Okay.
All that questions arise and are really important to have a proper response. It's our responsibility to give responses.
Very interesting point. Okay, Fran.
I personally think that it's really a good idea to add the ethical considerations as a point for next year, and I think it will become more and more important as time passes by, because we will have to do really a ton of considerations, because there are many interests to balance between educational interests, between privacy and also economical concerns. So it will be very difficult to have a balance between them, and I think it's a topic for research itself.
Thank you. Any other opinion about that? Okay, so we can go forward for the next question. I would like to present you. We have now on the screen a comparison of the different topics about challenge versus impact. So here we are representing in the x-axis the challenge. So the elements in this part are topics that we consider that are affordable. In the middle we have difficult, topics, and on the right, very difficult problems. Okay, and in the y-axis we have the topics that we think that they will have a small impact on education. In the middle, the ones that would have an important but medium impact, and the ones that would be disruptive. So we can see that most topics are in this quadrant, okay? We all think that they are disruptive in a way, or almost disruptive, but with a medium difficulty to obtain that. So I think that this is a question to be very, very optimistic, okay? Because we all think that they would have a very high impact, but we don't consider that they are not affordable. They are difficult, but possibly in few years we will have very important advances. The only thing that we have in this quadrant, which is the interfaces, I remember that we are talking about the human-computer interfaces like virtual reality, augmented reality, and speech, natural language recognition, and these kind of things. They are much more difficult, but they are not so disruptive. They are important, but they are not so disruptive. It was a bit shocking for me, okay? Because I has been working with virtual reality, for instance, and I have many authors consider that they are very, very disruptive technology. But in this forum, we have decided they are not so disruptive. I agree with the authors that it's difficult to obtain that, but they are not so disruptive. Why do you think they are not so disruptive? Why do you think that, for instance, things that are not so, how would I say, are not so shocking as the tutoring or the strategies are much more disruptive than interfaces that are much more visual? They can see by everybody, okay? What do you think about that?
I have a question. What are we considering as interfaces? I mean, are we considering, for example, smart devices like smart speakers or not? Or just things like virtual reality or something like that?
Okay, well, I would say that they can be considered in this part. They are, well, we also have the smart spaces, which are smart classrooms, which are very close in concept, but they have very different positions.
Yes, this is shocking for me. I agree with you, because I think we have some academic filter, because we are not considering that children are wearing wearables. They have wearables with them, and they are using smart speakers at home. So this is, I know this is a very incipient field, but I think this should be considered as learning spaces as well. Not formal, but I think the point is we have to make more ambitious and consider formal and informal environments. And we sometimes we tend, in academic field, we tend to be more formal. What happened with informal spaces? Because I think that really disruptive points are happening in informal learning environments. So I think we should have this view, this wider view, to really have a productive discussion.
Okay.
In that regard, I would like to say that one thing is impact that it could have, and also the potential. Because when you were referring before to virtual reality, it could be really disruptive, but it should be also considered how it's going to be implemented. Because if it's not affordable, if it's not usable or really difficult to include, it is not going to provide such an impact. So I also agree with Anna with the adoption, with the inclusion of informal learning environments, because especially right now with that we are moving outside the classroom, that we are trying to propose different forms of learning or activities that the students can approach, and also in different places this extension of the learning process should be considered, and we should try to provide interfaces not only for data acquisition but also for providing the interventions, the resources to the students to extend this learning. That's why it's difficult to implement them, but also should be reflected of the ambition or the feasibility of how these interfaces could be deployed and used by real users, not only in research or academic environments.
Okay, I think that's a good point, because we must know that our students are not learning only in the classroom, and not only with the devices or the models that we give them. They are learning outside the classroom with their own devices, with their own informal spaces or informal platforms. And most times this question is not considered. Okay, so we only consider what they are learning in our classes. But learning and education, it's an integral question. So this is a different question to discuss, and maybe it's not specifically for this track, but as we are all teachers, we should be aware of these interactions that are made with other subjects, with other environments, with the day-by-day learning that our students have outside. And I think that we should consider that. And I think that is a question, it's a very interesting question, but difficult to deal with, okay? Because it's very difficult to control what they are doing outside. But what we can do is to encourage our students to give to our spaces in the university or in the institution, to give their own devices, their own ideas, their own ways of learning, so that we can take advantage of them. I think that Frank wanted to intervene.
Alex?
Well, I think that not only our students, but all of us are constantly learning every day and every minute, because that's what our brains do. Our brains love learning. And the problem is that we usually don't consider learning outside the curricular world. So we think of learning and curricular to be the same, but they are not the same, because we want our students to learn the things we present to them on our curricula, but they learn constantly, and they sometimes even prefer learning other things, like, for instance, when they play video games, they love to learn how to be better at games, and that doesn't have to be curricular at all. So learning, it happens everywhere and all day, and it's very interesting to consider this thing as a whole, and trying to make them learn in the informal spaces. But the problem for us, I think, is that it's why beyond our scope as teachers. I mean, not not beyond our interest, but beyond our scope of control, because it's so difficult to make them learn, even in our close scope, in our universities, in our classrooms, through exercises, through activities we prepare. It's difficult. So going beyond is even much more difficult. So it goes way beyond our possibilities as individuals, I think. And I think that's the main reason why informal spaces are not so well considered as learning as a whole and considered in the university. And maybe that is reflected in this graph when we are considering interfaces not so disruptive, because it goes beyond our control. If they in the future have virtual reality and they can go in different worlds, it will go beyond our control. It will be very difficult to use everything as a whole to learn the things we want them to learn. So I think that's what we are reflecting here. And I also would like to make a point with this graph, because I think we are very optimistic people. So all the things here, except interfaces, are on the left side. So we think they are difficult or affordable, not very difficult. So I think we are very, very optimistic people, because really probably most of them are much more difficult than we think.
Thank you, Fran. I agree with you, but I think that the future is of optimistic people. So future is ours. Okay, anyone wants to intervene? Okay, Alex.
Yeah, I like that the strategies and tutoring is in the top of the impact in the disruptive quadrant. And I think that is maybe because it's the end of this string of this procedure. Yes, if we had a very close and confidential analytics and modeling, maybe we could reach better strategies and tutoring. So I mean that the design good strategies and implement really good tutoring may be the goal of the educational process. So I agree that this is in the disruptive way of the impact, maybe because it's the goal of all the people teaching or managing in some educational framework. So it's very important. I agree with the opinion of Fran that the people is optimistic because nothing is really difficult. So, but it's very important to see that the interfaces or platforms, spaces is not well understood. Platforms and interfaces may be considered as a technological perspective, but the other ones in the modeling and the analytics way is really close from strategies and tutoring. So I think it's a very, very interesting graph, and I think it could be very, very interesting also if we could take the opinion of students about this. This could be the matching opinion of this position, these clouds, researchers or professionals and students. They could place these clouds in the same quadrants or not? Which is really important for them? It's a very, very interesting.
Good point, Alex. Very good point. Okay, I would say that while you were talking, I have seen that there are two groups of topics. I would say one group is about human capabilities. And the other is about technical questions, okay? So strategies, tutoring, modeling, collaboration, evaluation are human capabilities. We don't know how to do it using computers. We are just making approximations. But spaces, platforms, interfaces, even analytics are much more technical questions, okay? And they are, in my opinion, easier to get, but not so disruptive, because the really disruptive question would be to give our machines a human behavior, okay? So this would be very, very disruptive. But I think that what is shocking for me is that strategies of tutoring, for instance, they are disruptive, I agree, but they seem to be not so difficult.
Yeah.
And maybe I think that are the much more difficult thing to obtain. Well, I think that's a question of point of view. As when we were talking about maturity, we could detect some contradictions, but in fact they were not. Maybe here they are not a contradiction, but it's very interesting, this question that you have introduced about human questions, high level, and much low level and much more technical questions. And I agree with you that the opinion of the students would be very interesting. Yeah? I think it's a good article for next year. Okay. Any other opinion?
I would like to say again, I would like to appeal to you to a wider point of view, because if we have a look on the enterprise field, this is happening. I mean, machines are learning from users. Spotify has launched an application that is already learning from users to give a personalization scheme. So this is happening. This is just about happening in education. I mean, we will have in the future a virtual tutor that can attend students. Why not? Because if we have any application learning from teachers, we could have a machine that could tutor students with this learning. So once again, I think we should apply for academics to be introduced in wider spaces, because when bigger things are considered, just politicians, stakeholders, governments are in the situation. But I think we academics should claim our place, because we have a lot of interesting point of views to introduce to this context and make it better places. I'm not sure if you understand what I mean, but we need to assume we can put we can highlight special issues such as this, having a look in the enterprises field and looking and studying what are they doing. They are advancing in this regard. So if Spotify has an application that can learn from consumers, users, can we have this in education, in learning spaces?
Good question. I would ask you, Ana, as you open this melon, as we say in Spanish, my impression is that in general the companies are much more advanced in these questions that education.
Yes.
Why do you think is this happening? Because in the education we don't have the money that these companies have.
This is the point.
Or maybe a different question, or maybe both, because academics we are too strict. We're using these kind of things. For instance, a thing that can be good for Spotify is good for students, or are we sure that it is good, or we can dare to use it in our classes without being very sure that it's ethical, that it's good, that has a good functioning? What do you think?
Yes, I think both. First of all, economic, and secondly, I think academics tend to be more traditional in this respect. We are now in a point of the history really important, because everything's changing, everything is transforming. Education is a big institution that changes very slow, you know, and industry goes really, really fast in their improvements. You know, technology is faster than education, than governments, than politics. So this is the problem. We first have the machines, the devices, and then we have to learn how to use it, how to put it into meaning in learning situations. So I think the bigger problem we have to deal with is that technology goes faster than our capacity or our capability to respond to these changes. This is important, but this is why we have to be open-minded and see what is happening in all fields, not only academics, because if we just look into us, I mean, what is happening in university? What are we doing in university? This is so endogamous. I don't know if in English exists this word, endogamico. So sorry, this is Spanish word, but I don't know how to do it. This is a problem. We have to be open-minded. What is happening in society? What is happening with technology? How users are using technology? And then we could transform university. You know, we are in an important point, because university is, I think, it's my point of view, is in crisis. Why? Because big enterprises such as Google are demanding their own universities. You know, last year in the United Kingdom was approved the University of Google. This is Google is preparing their own workers. So we as university, as academics, have to be faster in our reactions, because they are just invading our fields, you know. So
well, that would be to discuss in a whole track about
yes,
that.
a lot of
Because
things are rising.
we are going back to slow cooking, slow living. Why not to slow learning? Okay, because this fast learning, from my point of view, like the one that is proposed by Google, is it has the same drawbacks as fast food. Okay.
Maybe,
so,
but the students want to have a work when they finish their studies. So this is an important point in our schedule. Students want to work. Are we preparing them to work? And this is a bigger question.
Okay, thank you,
Sorry.
Ana. Well, we are in time now. We are finishing the hour that we have for this discussion, and well, now I think that I was mistaken, and I should have asked for half an hour more, or even an hour more. But anyway, I think that it's very interesting, the questions that we have talked about, and let me give a very short conclusion about your opinions and mine. I would say that we have detected a new topic about smart learning, which is the ethical considerations that they are going to be introduced in the next year, and I would invite you to give your opinions and to send us new papers. And also I also would say that we have detected that learning is a whole, so we need to consider informal spaces, informal ways of learning, and to consider that in our environments. And we have also detected that we have two kind of topics here, which are the more human capabilities, and in the other side, the more technical questions. And finally, maybe we need a reflection about how the university and the institutions, the academic in general, are introducing the new questions or the new developments, and how can we introduce this more close to society way of learning or teaching. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention, for your opinions. Thank you also for your papers. I think that we have made a short track, but very interesting and high quality track. I also encourage the people who is hearing to us to see the presentations about the four papers in this track. And I also encourage you to participate in next editions of this conference and in this track. I am very, very happy with the result, and I give now the word to Carlos to finish this session, okay, which is my co-chair in this track. Carlos, please.
Okay, thanks, Rafa. I would like to say that I want to thank you for your videos also. And this is all. Thanks for everybody, and pleased to meet you in this forum.
Okay, thank you very much. Alicia, if you want to close.
Thank you very much to all, and you can continue following the amazing speakers that we have right now related to computational thinking.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, friends. Bye.
Bye.